Jack Taylor walked into the luxurious restaurant, the warm yellow light shining on his expensive suit, accentuating his elegant and powerful appearance. Everyone in the dining room turned to look as he passed by, as if he were a character in their world. He was a real estate millionaire, possessing everything others dream of. A successful career, vast wealth, and the perfect life that not everyone can achieve. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, and Jack took pride in what he had accomplished. But today, he wasn't here just for work or a social event. The real reason he was here was a woman. When his eyes found Maya Johnson, he couldn't stop staring. Maya was a striking black woman with smooth, dark skin, large, round eyes filled with determination, but also hiding deep anxiety. She was sitting alone in the corner of the room, and when she saw Jack, she couldn't hide the confusion in her gaze. They had known each other before, but today's encounter was different from the last. In a moment, everything seemed to stop. Jack walked toward her and Maya stood up, her gaze quickly moving from his face to her fingers, tightly gripping the table. Finally, they faced each other, and as a natural reflex, Jack extended his hand, placing it on her shoulder. A quick kiss without words. Their breaths blended together in the still air, as if time had stopped. But in that moment, the sweetness of the kiss couldn't hide the tension and fear that were building up in Maya's heart. She regained her composure, looked into Jack's eyes, and began to speak. "I have something important to tell you." Her voice trembled slightly, but her gaze remained determined. Jack looked at her, sensing something unusual in Maya's voice and demeanor. He smiled lightly, but what he didn't know was that this moment would change his life completely. "What is it?" Jack asked, half smiling mockingly. She paused for a moment, then sighed. I'm pregnant," she said, each word falling softly like a knife to Jack's heart. The whole space seemed to turn into a swirling wave, and Jack suddenly felt dizzy and stunned. Her words exploded in his mind like a bomb, shattering all the logic and confidence he once had. He looked into Maya's anxious eyes, then turned away, trying to hide the panic rising within him. "Maya, you can't be serious, right?" His voice trembled, struggling to maintain his calm exterior. Maya shook her head, a sad smile appearing on her lips, as if she had prepared for this moment long ago. "No, Jack, I'm not joking, and I know this will scare you." She looked at him one more time, then glanced down at the table, where the white papers and pens seemed to become meaningless symbols in that moment. Jack felt as though he were trapped by the truth right in front of him. He tried not to let his emotions show, but inside, a storm was rising. Maya's words kept echoing in his head. Pregnant? His child? Everything suddenly became too complicated. He closed his eyes, feeling as if his heart was beating faster than ever. Not from joy or happiness, but from fear, anxiety about everything that could happen if this truth were exposed. He was a successful man, a millionaire. Everything he had built, all the effort he had put in, could vanish if people found out the truth. And the worst part was, he didn't know what to do. "Maya, we can't let this affect my life. Do you understand?" His voice was cold, and all the exhaustion was visible on his face. A sense of guilt rose, but he tried not to let it consume him. Maya looked at him, then silently nodded, not saying a word. But in her gaze, a question lingered, a question Jack couldn't answer. Could he bear the truth? In the silence, Jack sat there, like a man pushed into a corner, with no way out. And Maya, the woman he had never truly understood, was standing in front of him, carrying an unchangeable secret. Maya never expected that their final meeting would end in such cold loneliness. As she stood before Jack, her feelings were of anticipation, hopes that seemed to have faded, suddenly awakening. Despite the hurried kiss earlier, despite Jack's probing look, she had thought that everything would end happily. at least with a second chance. But now, she realized she was wrong. Maya looked into Jack's eyes, not with longing or expectation, but with a painful feeling rising in her heart. Jack, the man she had loved for so long, now stood before her, colder and more distant than ever. The pain she felt didn't just come from the rejection, but also from Jack's harsh and blaming words. He didn't just deny their relationship, he treated it as a game, an adventure without a future. Maya, you have to understand, this is not something I can share. It's just a mistake, Jack said, his voice devoid of sympathy, without any hesitation or regret, just cold certainty. Maya, though it felt like her heart was being torn apart, still tried to keep a calm exterior. She could feel the panic starting to creep into Jack's heart, but it wasn't concern for her or the child she carried. It was just fear about what might happen to his career and family if all this were exposed. Maya couldn't help but feel the disparity between the two worlds they were living in. One side was prosperity, power, and everything Jack had built, while the other side was her, a single woman, carrying a child he had rejected. Jack, I don't understand how you can say those things, Maya softly said, her hands trembling as she clutched her small handbag. She could no longer look into his eyes without feeling the distance. Everything she had hoped for, every emotion she had put into believing in this love, was now denied in a cold statement. Jack turned away, unable to face the emotions he was lying to himself about. He didn't want to see the hurt in Maya's eyes, didn't want to feel the sorrowful look she gave him. He just wanted to quickly resolve this, leave, and avoid facing a reality he couldn't change. You have to understand, I can't stay with you. I have a career, a family, things I can't ignore, Jack tried to say, but each word he uttered felt like a knife stabbing Maya's heart. The pain didn't just come from Jack's words, but also from the way he treated her. He didn't just reject her, he treated their relationship as a mistake, an unnecessary act. Maya felt invisible, like a ghost in Jack's life that he didn't want to acknowledge. She could feel the coldness in every word, every gesture of his. This wasn't love. It was avoidance, a refusal to face the reality he didn't want to confront. Maya stood there, overwhelmed by the pain. She wanted to cry, to scream, but she couldn't. She was too tired of meaningless tears. She knew Jack had made his decision, and that decision couldn't be changed. I will raise the child on my own, Maya said, no longer weak in her voice. She wasn't someone who would easily give up, but she also couldn't continue living in a relationship that Jack had firmly rejected. She took a deep breath, as if to push away all the pain and exhaustion in her heart. As she turned and walked away, each step felt like an affirmation of her decision. Though her heart still clung to hope, though deep down, she still hoped. She knew she could wait no longer. She had to live for herself, for the child growing inside her, and couldn't keep living in the illusions of a love Jack had left behind. She promised to raise the child alone, no matter what. For a mother, nothing is more important than protecting her child from unnecessary suffering. Maya walked away, but inside the emotions had not faded. Hope, anger, and an unspeakable sadness remained in every breath. She knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also understood that she would never forget this moment. This rejection would always be a part of her story, but not the story of failure. It would be the story of rebirth, of standing up after being knocked down. Maya couldn't wait for another miracle. She had to be the one to create that miracle. Maya entered a new phase of her life, a phase where she could rely on no one but herself. After the encounter with Jack ended in coldness and painful rejection, she did not let that pain consume her. She decided not to become a victim of circumstance, but rather the one in control of her own life. With all her determination, she began to rebuild her life from the broken pieces. In the next 5 years, Maya devoted all her energy to volunteer work. She opened a community center to help single mothers and struggling families. It was not an easy job, but for Maya, it became became a way to heal herself. Her center became a refuge for women facing difficulties similar to what she had gone through. She inspired them, helping them see the light at the end of the tunnel, igniting hope for a better future. With the help of volunteers and her own resilience, Maya created a strong community where women could find support, understanding, and love. The days spent taking care of her daughter Zoe, now 4 years old, were full of challenges, but also filled with joy. Zoe was Maya's greatest comfort in life. The little girl with shining eyes was the driving force that kept Maya moving forward. Despite the hardships, Maya didn't have much time for herself, but every moment she spent with Zoe was a compensation for the difficult days. Her daughter was the only companion in this journey. Sometimes on long, sleepless nights, when Zoe was sick, or when Maya had to face challenges at work, she only needed to look into her daughter's eyes, feeling the unconditional love Zoe had for her. And in that moment, Maya found the strength to continue. Though Maya's life was full of challenges, for her, it was a meaningful journey. She no longer felt alone. Maya had found a new purpose in life, to contribute to the community, to help other mothers struggling with life's difficulties, and most importantly, to care for and protect her daughter. She no longer had to worry about what Jack had done or the pains of the past. Maya had created a new life, not in the dreams of love, but in a reality full of hope and faith in herself. Meanwhile, Jack continued his path, unaware that his life was slowly drifting away into emptiness. Though his career flourished and his family had been built according to his parents' desires, Jack's heart was never truly happy. He continued with meetings, deals, and social gatherings, but deep down, he always felt a sense of emptiness. He realized that all the success and work couldn't make up for the void he felt inside. He had everything others wanted, but he lacked one very important thing: fulfillment in his soul. Regret was something Jack couldn't avoid. He couldn't erase the memories of Maya or the child he had rejected. He recalled the days spent with Maya, the times they laughed together, the moments they shared dreams and hopes. He remembered the warmth of holding Maya's hand, the look in her eyes, the nights spent together. But it was all just the past now. The decisions of the past had led him to a life he never wanted. Though Jack's family had arranged everything for him, and though he had built a perfect image of a successful man, he felt as if he were living in a glass box. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but empty inside. He looked at his wife, at his children, but couldn't find true joy. Every day passed the same, with nothing changing. He couldn't forget Maya, couldn't forget his daughter. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had done and what he had missed. Jack felt that he had lost his chance. And now, looking back, all he wanted was a second chance. But Maya was no longer the girl who forgave easily. She had changed, become stronger, and Jack knew that to gain her forgiveness, he would have to work very hard. But would it be too late? That question haunted Jack every day. Jack never expected that one day, through a news program, he would learn what had happened in Maya's life over the past 5 years. It was a spring afternoon when Jack happened to come across a TV show about single mothers, in which Maya appeared. His heart raced when he saw her, but not because of romantic feelings or nostalgia for the past. It was a different feeling, a sense of emptiness, mixed with deep regret. He realized that Maya was no longer the girl he once knew, and that made him feel lonelier than ever. Her long hair had been cut short, but her eyes still sparkled, full of determination and strength. Maya was now a strong woman, far from the girl Jack had rejected. She had built a new life for herself and her daughter, Zoe. And now, she was doing something Jack could never have imagined. She was a leader, helping other women in need. While he continued to live in a world of artificial perfection, Maya had stepped outside and done something meaningful. A wave of regret swept over Jack. Immediately, Jack decided to seek out Maya. He didn't know why. He just knew that a part of him couldn't pass up this opportunity. He had to meet her again, face what he had done, and most importantly, face his daughter, the one he had never met. but who had always been in his heart. That day, Jack went to the school where Zoe was studying. It was a big event at the school, and Maya was there, attending with other parents. When Jack arrived, Maya was standing at the door, listening to the teachers and other parents talking about her daughter. She didn't see Jack right away, but when he approached, his presence couldn't help but draw attention. Jack's heart pounded as he saw Zoe from afar. The child, now 4 years old, was no longer the little girl in his memory. Zoe had grown, no longer the innocent girl he had once imagined. She had become a sharp, intelligent little girl. But what surprised Jack was Zoe's gaze. When she saw him, her eyes showed no recognition, no warmth or love. They were cold, as if he were a stranger. Maya sensed the tension in the air. She saw Jack and turned away, not wanting to face him. But then, Jack walked up to her, unable to turn back. All the emotions, all the memories, all the nostalgia for a time long past suddenly surged in him. He felt he couldn't back down, couldn't let this chance slip by to redeem himself. He moved closer to Maya, but she wouldn't look at him. Her eyes were on Zoe, as if trying to shield the child from the pain of this encounter. Jack decided to speak. "Maya," he called softly, not to accuse or apologize, but just to say something he had not been able to say for so many years. "I just want to say that I misunderstood everything. I was wrong to reject you, and I was wrong not to be here with my daughter." His voice was quiet but sincere. He wanted Maya to understand that he was no longer the man he once was. Maya remained silent for a long while. She looked at him, then at her daughter, unsure of what to do. She was still angry at Jack for what he had done, but deep down, a part of her could feel the change in him. She couldn't deny that he had come, that he was really trying. But she also couldn't forget the pain he had caused her. Those were wounds that couldn't heal easily. "Maya," Jack called again, this time with a sense of urgency. "I know you're still angry, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but at least I want the chance to meet my daughter." His words forced Maya to face a truth she had been trying to avoid all this time. She didn't want to open up, didn't want to hope for something she wasn't sure about. But her heart couldn't stop worrying about Zoe. She looked at Jack, then into Zoe's eyes. Her little girl, now grown, was standing in front of them, not fully understanding everything. But that gaze still held curiosity and a hint of doubt. Maya knew that, no matter how angry she was, she couldn't stop her daughter from learning the truth about her father. The emotions inside Maya were chaotic. She had once loved Jack, once believed that they could build a family, a happy future. But now, she wasn't sure about anything. Could she open her heart again, give Jack a second chance, when the pain still lingered inside her? She was afraid that opening her heart to him would only bring more disappointment, and she didn't want Zoe to endure any more pain. However, even with the inner conflict, Maya couldn't deny that a part of her wanted to give Jack a chance. She didn't know if it was the right thing to do, but she knew that their lives had changed, and this opportunity might be part of that change. She looked at Jack, then at her daughter, and sighed. "You can meet your daughter, but only when I feel it's right, and that won't be easy." Jack, though understanding that Maya wouldn't forgive him easily, couldn't stop hoping. He just wanted a chance to prove that he could be the father Zoe needed and the man Maya deserved. When Jack returned home after the meeting with Maya and Zoe, his mind was filled with chaotic thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking about that encounter, about the emotions he felt when facing his daughter, about the changes in Maya, and the regret that overwhelmed him. Unanswered questions kept swirling in his mind. Could he fix his mistakes? Could he ease Maya's pain and rebuild his relationship with his daughter? But before he could find answers to those questions, a meeting with his father awaited him. William, Jack's father, was a powerful and strict man. He was the one who built the company Jack was now running, and he always had high demands for his son. For William, everything had to be maintained within boundaries, in order, and most importantly, to protect the family's reputation. That was why he could not accept Jack's contact with Maya and Zoe, whom he saw as a stain on the family's history. William could not accept Jack's relationship with a woman who did not meet the societal standards he had set for his family. That day, when Jack returned home after the meeting with Maya, he immediately encountered his father in the living room. William was sitting there, his eyes sharp, with no greeting or friendliness. As soon as Jack entered, he spoke immediately, without hesitation. "Jack," he said, his voice thick, "I heard about you meeting with Maya and her raising your daughter. I can't believe you're doing this." His voice was like a slap in Jack's face, making him feel as if he was being forced to face a truth he had not wanted to acknowledge. "You have to cut off all contact with her and the girl. That is the only thing you can do to protect this family and this company," William continued, his tone uncompromising. "Family reputation is the most important thing, Jack. If you don't do what I ask, you will no longer be part of this family." These words were like a sharp blade, severing all connections Jack had with his father. Jack stood frozen, tension and conflict rising inside him. He couldn't believe what his father had just said. In William's eyes, everything could be sacrificed for reputation and power, and that was what made Jack feel sad. "I can't do that, Father," Jack replied, his voice firm, but his heart was trembling. "I can't give up Maya and Zoe. They are my family." William looked at Jack, his gaze cold. "Family?" he asked, his voice mocking. "You call a woman you rejected and her daughter family? Are you crazy, Jack?" The contempt in his father's voice made Jack feel as though all the values he had once believed in were now trampled upon. His father didn't see love, didn't see children as an important part of life. He only saw the company, reputation, and power. Jack could clearly feel the tension in his heart, but he also couldn't give up Maya and Zoe. He had let too much go in the past, and now it was time to do what was right. "You don't understand," Jack sighed. "I was wrong to reject Maya, and I can't continue living in a lie. I can't keep living just to satisfy your expectations while ignoring the people who matter in my life." These words felt like a scream inside Jack, a declaration of what he truly wanted. William stood up, waving his hand as if to push Jack away. "You'll have to choose, Jack. Either this family or her and the child. You can't have both. You can't have it all. And if you choose wrong, you will pay the price." His gaze was like a threat, and Jack felt as though he was being pushed into an inescapable crossroads. Everything inside Jack seemed to flip upside down. He stood there facing his father, feeling the tension in the air like a rope tightening around his neck. He didn't know what to do. The relationship between him and his father had always been one of unspoken tension, but it had never been like this. He had to choose between the family his father represented and the love he had found with Maya and his daughter, a choice that was incredibly difficult. After a moment of silence, Jack clenched his teeth, deciding not to let himself be controlled any longer. "You can ask me, but I won't give up the people who matter in my life," Jack replied, his voice resolute. "I won't let this family control my life anymore." He turned and walked away, though his heart was still full of worry and conflict. The confrontation with his father made Jack realize that family and the company were not everything. He could no longer live a life solely for the expectations of others. He could not continue ignoring love and the important people in his life just for reputation and power. Jack knew he would have to face his past decisions, fix his mistakes, and do everything he could to rebuild his relationship with Maya and Zoe. He had decided that he would not turn back, would not turn away from the challenges, no matter how great they were. Maya stood in front of her house, her eyes filled with sadness as she gazed outside. The sun had set behind the tall buildings, but in her heart, the darkness still lingered. The past few months had left her not only with deep wounds, but also with memories of love, hope, rejection, and now a tense meeting she could not avoid. She had lived in unforgettable pain. Jack had once been everything to her. The time they spent together, though brief, was filled with sweet memories. But what happened afterward forced her to face a harsh reality. Love couldn't protect everything. And sometimes, hope was just an illusion. Jack had abandoned her, rejected their love because of his fear and the ties he couldn't escape. That rejection had shattered her, but Maya understood that she could no longer live in the past. Her daughter Zoe had grown up, and part of her understood that allowing Zoe to know about her father was important. Although still angry, Maya realized that she couldn't continue hiding this truth. She couldn't let the wounds that had yet to heal affect her decision about her daughter's future. She looked at Zoe, the innocent little girl, unaware of her mother's past and the father she had never met. Every time Zoe asked about her father, Maya didn't know how to answer. Was she deceiving her daughter by not giving her the chance to know about her father? Maya didn't want her daughter to live in the shadow of secrets, but she also didn't want Zoe to suffer any more pain. Could she forgive Jack? Could she give him a chance to be Zoe's father? Or was this just another mistake? Fear rose again in Maya's heart. She couldn't simply forget what Jack had done, but she also couldn't deny that he had changed. She could see the sincerity in his eyes when he begged for a chance. But would this change be enough to heal the wounds in her heart, or would it just bring more disappointment and pain? Maya stood still for a moment, her eyes filled with tears as she gazed at the darkness outside the window. Her heart conflicted beyond words. She had given Jack a second chance, but did he truly understand what he had done wrong and have the strength to make amends? Jack knew that time couldn't be turned back, but he still hoped that he could change the future. For him, Maya and Zoe were the most important people in his life, and he could no longer live in regret. He knew that facing Maya wouldn't be easy, but he had to do it. For his daughter, for the regret he had carried for all these years. When Jack met Maya again, he was no longer the tough, arrogant man he once was. He had changed, and that change wasn't just from realizing the mistakes of the past, but also from the decisions he was now facing. He didn't want to be a negligent father anymore. He wanted to do everything he could to make up for his absence in Zoe's life. A wave of anxiety overwhelmed Jack as he stood in front of Maya's door. He took a deep breath before knocking. Maya opened the door, her eyes still filled with some doubt, but also with fatigue. She didn't say anything, just stood there, looking at him, as if challenging him. "Jack," she spoke, her voice shaking softly, but still resolute. "I don't know if I can give you a chance. What you've done, I can't forget, but I also don't want my daughter to live in uncertainty about her father." Jack felt a lump in his throat, but he also understood that what he needed to do now was to prove his change. He didn't want to just talk, he wanted to act. "Maya, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I hurt you, and I deprived my daughter of her father's love. I can't change the past, but I will do everything to make up for what I've missed. I don't ask you to forgive me immediately, but I hope for a chance to prove my love, to become the father Zoe deserves." Jack's words truly touched Maya's heart, but she couldn't easily open up as she had before. She had to struggle with her own feelings. Was she hoping for something impossible, or had Jack really changed? She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she saw something sincere in them. "What can you do to prove that?" Maya asked, her voice almost trembling with emotion. Jack stood silent for a moment. Then he answered, his voice full of determination. "I will not let you raise Zoe alone anymore. I will always be here, for her, for you. I will not leave any more gaps. I want to be the father Zoe needs, not just a financial provider, but someone who will help you raise and protect her." Maya felt a wave of emotion rising in her chest. She looked at Jack, then down at Zoe, who was playing in the corner of the room. The little girl looked up at them, her bright eyes full of curiosity. Maya understood that if she opened her heart again, not only would she have to accept the change, but Zoe would have to as well. Could they accept this change without suffering more pain? Could they fix the mistakes of the past? Or would it just be another series of failures? Finally, Maya sighed, deciding not to let fear control her anymore. "We will try together, Jack, but if you disappoint me again, there won't be a third chance." Jack nodded, his heart filled with hope. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to do everything for Maya, for Zoe, and for himself. When Maya and Jack faced each other once again, the air in the room became unbearably tense. Each of them could feel the weight of the past, the unhealed wounds, and the fear of the future. Both understood that in order to heal their relationship, they would have to go through a long, challenging, and painful journey. Maya had once placed all her trust in Jack, believing that the love between them could overcome any difficulty. But now she had endured deep pain, and his wrong decisions had forced her to face a different reality. Love might not be enough to rebuild everything. She had loved, but his rejection, his coldness had made her lose faith in promises and in late apologies. Jack understood that. He knew that what he had done couldn't be erased with just a few words of apology. He couldn't simply say that he had changed and hope everything would go back to normal. But when he looked into Maya's eyes, he felt something. It was determination, the strength of a woman who had gone through too much pain, but still held on to a small belief in the possibility of change. She was fighting with herself, with her fears, torn between love and the deep wounds she had suffered. "Maya," Jack said, his voice full of sincerity, "I know I was wrong. I can't change the past, but I can try to change the future. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but I just want you to know that I will do everything to prove that I can be the father Zoe needs and the man you deserve." Maya didn't say anything right away. She could feel the sincerity in Jack's words, but inside, she still had too many questions, too many doubts. Could he really change? Could he endure the challenges that she and Zoe had faced all these years? Could their love be strong enough to overcome all the barriers? She looked at Jack, her gaze full of complexity. "Do you think everything can change just with words, Jack?" she asked, her voice tinged with bitterness. "Do you think I can forget everything that's happened just because you say you'll change?" She sighed, looking down at the floor as if to avoid his gaze. "You left us behind, not once, but many times. Our daughter, Zoe, has had to grow up without her father by her side. And me, I've had to carry everything on my own." Jack felt the pain of her words. He knew that no words could erase the hurt Maya had endured, but he couldn't give up. He wanted to make it right, to prove that he could be better, that he could be a better father. "I don't think words can change everything, Maya," Jack replied, his voice low and determined. "I understand that I will have to prove myself, not just with words, but with actions. I won't let you raise Zoe alone anymore. I will always be here for both of you." Maya looked into Jack's eyes. Those were the eyes she had once loved, the eyes now carrying regret, a sincerity she couldn't deny. She could feel the change in him, but she couldn't ignore the fear in her heart. Could he stay committed long term? Could he overcome all the challenges life would throw at them? Finally, Maya spoke, her voice gentle but serious. "What can you do to prove that you won't abandon us again, Jack?" She looked at him, not with anger, but with determination, as if testing him. Jack felt his heart heavy. This was not just an opportunity, but a decisive test for everything he had once lost. He had no choice but to prove that he had changed. "I won't just talk anymore, Maya," Jack said, his voice strong. "I will do everything I can to fix the mistakes. I will spend time with my daughter, and I will never let you feel alone in this life. I will be a part of Zoe's life, and I will be the father she deserves." Maya looked at Jack, sensing that his words were not just promises, but a deep commitment. Though doubts still lingered in her heart, she couldn't deny that a part of her wanted to believe in him. She sighed, then looked at Zoe, who was playing alone in the room. The little girl knew nothing about this confrontation, but perhaps she was the only one without any inner conflict. She simply wanted a father, to have a complete family, just like any other child. "You want to prove your love?" Maya asked, looking directly at Jack. "Then start by always being here, always present when Zoe needs you. That's the most important thing. Jack, you can't just talk about love. You have to show it through action." Jack nodded, saying nothing more. He knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to start over, even with just one chance. Maya, though still hesitant, also realized that she could no longer live in the past. She couldn't continue to shield Zoe from the truth about her father. It was time to give her a chance to know her father, to understand that sometimes true love isn't about perfection, but about commitment and perseverance, even through the toughest trials. And in that moment, both of them knew they were ready for a new step. A second chance, not just for love, but for family, for the rebirth of everything they had once lost. Maya stood by the window looking outside, feeling the fresh air of a fall morning. Her daughter Zoe was playing in the yard, her laughter ringing like a sweet melody, soothing Maya's worries. The time that had passed was not easy, and although she still had concerns in her heart, now, as she looked at Zoe, she felt real joy. Zoe had a childhood that every other child deserved to have, a childhood filled with love and care, and now, a family was slowly being rebuilt. Maya couldn't deny that, although their relationship was not perfect, love and understanding were the most important things that she and Jack had built together. The painful past and the mistakes couldn't be erased, but Maya realized that without forgiveness, without commitment, they wouldn't be able to move forward on this path. And more importantly, forgiveness wasn't just her decision, it was a gift for her daughter. Maya and Jack had worked together to rebuild what was lost. The tense conversations had gradually become lighter. Both of them understood that, in order to build a happy family, they had to learn to face the pains, the disagreements of the past, and focus on nurturing love, respect, and patience. Jack had changed not just in his words, but also in his actions. He had spent time with Zoe, becoming a real father, always there when she needed him. The three of them had learned to share, understand each other, and build a home together. Maya no longer felt alone in this life. She felt the steady presence of Jack beside her, and although their relationship was not perfect, the love in their small family was something incredibly precious. The old days were gone, and now they had a future they would walk hand in hand into, despite any difficulties or challenges ahead. Jack also realized that starting over was not easy. He couldn't change the past, but he could do everything in his power to build a better future for the family. The mistakes he had made couldn't be erased, but they had taught him important lessons about love, responsibility, and perseverance. He understood that building a family was a long process, but it was a job he was willing to dedicate the rest of his life to. Maya felt the change in Jack, not just in the sincerity of his words, but also in the presence he showed through his actions. He was not just Zoe's father, but also the partner she could trust. She knew that, although their relationship had many difficulties ahead, they had already passed the biggest tests and were starting a new life, not just for themselves, but for their daughter. Zoe, with the innocence and naivety of a child, didn't fully understand the complexities of the situation, but she could feel the love her parents had for her. She no longer had to face the deprivation, the emptiness she had always felt before. Zoe now had both her father and mother by her side, and that was the most precious thing for a child. Every day, she felt loved, cared for, and protected. Maya sat down beside Zoe as she returned from the playground with a bright smile on her face. She embraced her daughter, feeling the warmth and joy that Zoe brought into her life. Maya no longer felt lonely. She had found peace in her heart, and although the road ahead still had many challenges, she knew that family was the thing she had always wanted most. She had forgiven Jack, not just for him, but for their daughter, for the happy family they had built together. Maya looked at Jack, who was standing outside the window, his eyes full of hope and determination. He was not a perfect man, but he had proven that he could change and become the father that Zoe needed. Maya felt grateful for his efforts, but she also knew that love was not just about forgiveness, but also about empathy, sharing, and building a good future together. And so, their family began again, with challenges and obstacles ahead. But they had love, understanding, and commitment to overcome it all. The wounds of the past could never be erased, but they would no longer affect their lives. Maya, Jack, and Zoe would walk forward together, building a family full of love, where every day was a new day to be happy. Maya realized that, although the path they had traveled was filled with pain, forgiveness and love were the keys to building a happy family. And when she looked at Zoe, she knew that all the challenges, all the suffering of the past were worth it. Because now, they had a complete family. She no longer felt lonely, no longer felt deprived, and most importantly, she had found her faith in love, in life, and in her family. As the story of Maya and Jack gradually comes to an end, the emotions of the viewers also become conflicted and complicated. Love, forgiveness, and the decisions of the past have been strongly tested. Maya, who had once been deeply hurt, now stands before a difficult decision. Can she open her heart and give Jack a second chance, or will she let the past and the pain control her choice? This question is not only a challenge for Maya, but also a question each of us must face in life. In the silent moments, when Maya looks at Jack, she doesn't just see a man who was once the love of her life, but also a father who could bring completeness to Zoe. But can love erase the wounds that have deeply cut into her heart? Can forgiveness change their lives? And can they rebuild a happy family from the shattered pieces of the past? Faced with these questions, Maya did not rush to make a decision. She needed time to think, to confront the emotions inside her, and to view everything from a new perspective. Her decision would not only affect her, but also Zoe, the family they were trying to rebuild. The important thing was not whether she could forgive Jack, but whether she could forgive herself and allow herself to be happy again. The story of Maya and Jack is not a story about ideal love, but a story about acceptance, learning from mistakes, and persevering to overcome all difficulties. Each of us has decisions, mistakes in the past that we sometimes cannot change, but more important is whether we are willing to stand up, face those mistakes, and create a new future. Maya has shown us that, no matter how much pain we endure, love and forgiveness can be the keys to healing all wounds. With these questions, Maya is not just a character in the story, but also a reflection of ourselves, those of us who are facing important choices in life. If you were Maya, what would you do? Could you forgive someone who has deeply hurt you? Or would you hold on to that pain and let it control your life? And if you were Maya, the question echoes in the minds of all the viewers. Could you forgive Jack after 10 years of separation and give him a chance to be a real father to Zoe? What would you do if you were in Maya's position? These are the questions we all must ask ourselves in difficult situations, in the decisions we must make. This story is not only about Maya and Jack, but also about all of us, about choices, forgiveness, and love. What do you think about Maya's decision? Did she do the right thing? And if you were her, what would you do in that situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below this video. Every story, every feeling you share may be an inspiration to someone else on their journey. And don't forget, if you like this story, click the subscribe button to follow the upcoming videos. Let's share together, learn together, and explore life lessons through the stories we bring. Every story carries valuable lessons, and we look forward to accompanying you on this journey. Leave your thoughts and feelings below this video. We are eager to read and share with you. The story of Maya and Jack may not be perfect, but it is these imperfect stories that help us better understand love, forgiveness, and the power of rebuilding everything from the broken pieces.